Yesterday, hit this phone. The camera's on the other end, so I did that video yesterday. Hang on. Just trying to get myself sorted out. You remember that one I was doing, explaining about the Alnico switching method. So I thought I'd do a little bit more detail on it. So was it 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I was doing a bit of I was doing a little bit of reconnaissance. I think that's the right word, on my old video that I did, and so the previous design, I was stepping up voltage, you see, because I was running the low side voltage. It was, I can't remember now what voltage I was running at, maybe 15, maybe 14 volts or something. So the way that worked was, I was stepping up the low voltage, and on the low voltage side it was drawing a current of about 450 milliamps, and that was being stepped up because of the coil, the way the coils were wound on the Alnico array. There's a link in the description of the previous video. I'll try and link to that in this video when I finished it. I decided to unlist it so I can schedule it to be played on Saturday maybe. So I wanted to talk about this because it's important, really, you understand some of the details. So the reason I was stepping the voltage up was because I had to deliver a large amount of current at a very short period of time. And the short period of time was around 1 millisecond to 1.5 milliseconds or something. But there's some, if you go to my playlist on my channel, under Alnico switching transformer, all of the previous tests I was doing with the Alnicos is in there. Now, the original tests that I did was using my transformer that I built. This transformer had an array of Alnicos. There was 4 Alnico magnets in each rectangular transformer coil, right? And there was actually 4 sets. So there was 4 times 4 in each end. And now if you think about that, that's 450 milliamps divided across basically 16. Hang on, let me see. 4, 8, 16, 32 magnets actually. I think that was 32 magnets. That's a lot of magnets, and I was using quite a lot of current, but when you think about it, that's not much current. So hang on a minute. Let me go and get it, because it's in the other room. Ooh, I'm trying to rest at the moment because I've been under the weather lately. Let me just switch cameras again. So I stuck it in the other room. It's up there. I've got to get on my bed. Hang on a minute. Oh, shit, hang on, and they fell over. Ooh, I've got balance problems. Right, I stuck it up here out of the way. Probably covered in dust. Right, do you remember this? I have serious balance problems. Okay, so this is the thing I was testing, and if I take the top off, it's gone a bit rusty, look. Oh, my count was wrong. Alright, so look, there's 3 Alnico magnets. I actually cut them a bit shorter, I think, if I remember rightly. If I remember rightly. So these coils are all wide in parallel. So 12 Alnico magnets on each end. It's still got it's still magnetized from when I last used it. And I was driving LEDs at the time on the side there, but I've taken them off because I use it for something else now. And I've got laminations, and they're still in there. The laminations are still in there. I haven't taken them out. And that's my collector coil in the middle. It's upside down. So I wrote some stuff on there. I've forgotten what it said now. A 1,000 turns of 34 SWG wire. That's the reason why I used to use a high voltage, because it's quite fine wire. Oh, that's that one. But these top ones, I can't remember now how many turns there are on there. But these are the ones who are pulsing with the high voltage. So I was sending about 80 volts or something into these little rectangular coils at the bottom. As I said, there was put on my reel to reel now. So that's 24 altogether, right? So there was 24 magnets. Let's go in the other room, hang on. Why won't it switch cameras when I want it to do? Stupid thing. So there was high voltage of about, I think it was 80 volts. You can go and look at my playlist. But it was, that amount of power was on the high voltage side was quite low, really. But I couldn't measure it because it was like in, well, I could have measured it if I'd put it through a resistor and done a calculation on my oscilloscope and all that, but it doesn't matter because I measured the low side, and I measured the current on the low side. So all you have to do is do some math calculations to work out what the current would have been at the higher voltage side. Obviously it really depends on what coil thickness you use, how many turns and all that stuff. You're getting into all the technical jargon, but so I was sending this pulse of about a millisecond, and we're pulsing the Alnicos to switch the polarity. I think it was that speed sort of thing. And I found that when I increased the speed, I had to increase the I had to reduce the dead zone. The dead zone is the space between each pulse. So there's a pulse, then the pulse drops off, there's a dead zone, and that dead zone is the gap in between the pulses where there's no activity, there's no power going to the coils. So then the next negative pulse would come along of about a millisecond or so, which would reverse the polarity of the Alnico magnets. Now, because there was 24 magnets, I think that's right, yeah, 24 magnets in there, you have to remember that that's 24 times that equates to the resulting 450 milliamps. So if you divide 450 milliamps divided by 24, then you would be able to get the value of what it would be to change one Alnico magnet. So you would realize that you could actually use much less current, especially if you were in series. So you could have two magnets in series, because the trick with Alnicos is they work better when the Alnico magnets are thinner, because you have a much tighter magnetic field around the magnet when you have a coil wrapped around it. You have a much stronger field, and you can bias them to change the polarity, the field, more effectively when there were a thin Alnico magnet and a long Alnico magnet. Whereas if you try to change the polarity of a thick, stubbly, chunky Alnico magnet, I do have some of those. If you try to change those particular large magnets, you need a lot more power. But there's a trade-off, you see, because whereas the thin Alnico magnets are easy to change polarity, they also have a weaker force when you're trying to deflect another magnetic field, which is why it's best to have them in the pull mode. It's better to bias some sort of pulling or another magnet, because it's in their favour to remain polarised in that way, because it's reinforcing their polarity. So if you go into a push cycle with an Alnico, the Alnico is at risk of losing its magnetism. So that is the problem with having them pushing against another magnet, especially a neodymium, because that's how one way you can actually magnetize an Alnico is simply by bringing it towards a neodymium magnet. You can actually reverse the polarity just by bringing the Alnico against a neodymium, and you'll be able to reverse its polarity. So that's the problem with Alnicos. They're very useful if you use them in the right way, but they're a little bit like a damp poodle. They're a little bit lethargic, I think is the word, when it comes to pushing something, right, another magnet. So it's always best to use them in an attraction mode rather than a repulsion. The other thing I wanted to mention as well is I said in the previous video that I haven't got any plans yet to build that, and well, that's because as I explained, money's tight right now as well, and I don't want to start rushing into it. And I'm not saying I'm not going to build it. I'm just saying, just bear with me, give me time, because I have to do it in my own. When my mindset's focused. Now I haven't finished the backup computer yet either. I've still got to finish that. I mean, it's over there. The backup computer is still over there though, on the table. I haven't finished it. I haven't even put the new motherboard in yet. I've just been taking it easy lately, because oh, come on, switch back with your camera. I nearly dropped the phone. So I'm having issues at the moment. because you know about me being transgender and that, well, I'm due for my medication as well, and that's screwing me up really badly at the moment, so I've got to go and see doctors about that. And so I'm having some joint problems and other issues going on, depression, which is something you get with this particular time. I know I don't want to get into all that, but you don't hear my whinging. But as I say, we'll get to that design hopefully I'll be able to knock something out over the summer period. I was also talking about the radio coil circuit that would be interesting to do. I haven't actually ordered the speaker wire yet because I need to order some wire for that as well, and money's tight, so I need to get some oxygen-free copper. It needs to be that figure 8 stuff, you know, is tight. And I haven't ordered that yet either. But I'm hoping I'll be able to get that sorted at some point. But so we can have a tinker around with that, because I could drive that with my H-bridge. And I've also been looking at the circuit diagram for the H-bridge, which I drew up. And I'm looking at a way to drive it from, instead of an oscillator, which is the built-in oscillator, instead of it having the built-in oscillator where it oscillates between, you know, drive it from timing coils, so we can have a rotor with a trigger circuit to change its actuation. It can be done. The chip can be controlled externally by another pulse, but I don't want to mess up my circuit too much. I don't want to mess up the board too much, and I am looking at a way to add on board, maybe an add-on board to what I was thinking was to build another driver circuit on a separate board and take the chip out of that H-bridge board and plug in the call it a daughter board, right? We'll call it a daughter board. So have a separate chip on another board configured to send the drive pulses over to that main motherboard, right? Oh, go and get it anyway, it's in the cupboard. Hang on. So without knocking all stuff over. So this is wrong camera again. Right, so this is my H-bridge. If you remember, I've been, so what I was talking about was this is in an IC socket. This chip here is in an IC socket, and this is the capacitor, and this is the capacitor that drives the oscillator for that chip, right? So without messing up and having to rebuild a completely new driver board with all the MOSFETs which are on, sorry, get this out of the way. So all the MOSFETs are in here, right, from my H-bridge. Instead of having to rebuild the whole thing, all I'd have to do is remove that chip, build a daughter board with the chip like that on it, but instead of using this oscillator circuit, I would simply pipe in the pulses from another circuit to drive this board, and then just have like, instead of plugging the IC into this socket, I just plug the wires directly into the IC socket to drive the rest of this board from a separate pulse circuit. So you get the idea. This is all oscillator driven, right? All of this is oscillator driven. Whereas if I configured this chip on another board, it could be configured to receive two inputs, timing inputs, a positive and a negative for the waveform. You see what I'm getting at? So I could drive a magnet motor with an Alnico switching arrangement, and that is basically what I've been having to think about. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that, and I'm going to go back to YouTube and watch some stuff. Oh, incidentally, did you see that crazy stuff with the snooker the other day? That protester. Oh my god, I couldn't believe it. I might stick a link on the playlist on the end screen on this, maybe, so you could have a look at it. You've probably seen it anyway. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll keep you updated occasionally when I have some more news, but just for the moment I am just taking things easy. See you later, alligator.